Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, selamat pagi, and sawadee-krap. So our praise and thanks to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. By Him, we can meet virtually today, and our regret to greatest Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. For the first time, let me introduce myself. So my name is Izan Nur Aslam. You can call me Izan. I'll be in charge as moderator throughout this session today. Before we introducing the event, so I would like to welcome everyone here, particularly my honorable guest, for Dr. Muzailin Afan as the Chairman of International Affairs of Shah Kuala, Universitas Shah Kuala, to Dr. Andes Kismullah Yusuf, Master of Education, as the keynote speaker today, to Mr. Muhammad Akhir Abdul Rahman, a Deputy of CIMT, and to all representatives, including senior officers, staff, professor, lecturers, and students as well, from Universitas Shah Kuala, from Universitas Andalas, from University Malaysia Perlis, from University Utara Malaysia, and then from Taksin University, and the last but not least is from Prince Songkla University, participating in today's session. We are lucky today that we actually start the first series, I guess, the first series of some series that will be held, even of Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Growth Triangle, IMT-GT Mobility on virtual Teen Talk project plus. So we are now adding plus from the previous one, is just project. From the previous project, initially the session series is a joint collaboration between Universitas Shah Kuala, University Malaysia Perlis, and Taksin University. But now there are more additional collaborators, such as Universitas Andalas, University Utara Malaysia, and the last is Prince Songkla University. Our presentation today will pick a title, Reducing Inequality Through Accessible and Inclusive Education, a trade-off for developing country. I expect this will be an exciting topic to be discussed, such as maybe how we ensure the quality of education that no one left behind, or maybe how to promote lifelong learning opportunities, example of good practice maybe from every country that participating today, and a trade-off on possible access or implementation of inclusive education. So without further ado, I would like to call Dr. Muzailin Afan to give the remark as the host university to Dr. Muzailin Afan, whenever you are ready, sir.
Thank you, Izan. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning. Selamat pagi and sawadee-krap. First of all, syukur alhamdulillah, thanks to Allah that we are all together this morning during this pandemic situation, that we can meet by virtual to participate in IMT-GT UNINET Virtual Mobility Program, Teen Talk Project Plus. And also salawat and salam pada Nabi besar Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who bring us to the era of full knowledge. Honorable Dr. Kismullah Yusuf, our keynote speaker for today's sessions, and welcome Dr. Kismullah for this virtual mobility program of UNINET. Honorable Mr. Muhammad Akhil Abdul Rahman, our friend, Deputy Director of CMT in Putrajaya. Welcome, Pak Akhil. I think this is the first time that we invite CMT. Yeah, so we are very honored today with the presence of representative from CMT. and also honorable all representative from the six university, Universitas Syah Kuala, Universitas Andalas from Indonesia, and also University Utara Malaysia, and University Malaysia Perlis from Malaysia, and also representative and delegates from Thailand University, Taksin University, and Prince of Songkla University. And of course, all participants, presenters, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. So first of all, let us thanks to all the core members who make this MT-GT UNINET Virtual Mobility Program Teen Talk Project Plus. Yeah. Today, as the first series become a success. So we understand that during this pandemic, since last year, we have initiated a very good program that we call at that time Virtual Mobility Program, which was consist only three universities at that time. Universitas Syah Kuala, University Malaysia Perlis, and also Taksin University from Thailand. But in this year, we already expand to another three universities, as I mentioned before. But we hope that this virtual mobility program we can expand to all members of the university network, which we have 27 universities from these three countries. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are very honored and happy to host this first series of the MT-GT UNINET Virtual Mobility Program Teen Talk Project Plus. So this year we have plus because we add more members. So also we we congratulate for the new three university members who already joined, and we hope that we will increase this and advance all the members and the speakers from these Teen Talks not only contribute for their own university, but contribute to all university across these three countries. Ladies and gentlemen, I would to inform you that a few days ago, we have also a meeting with the National Secretariat of MT-GT. So we report also about this mobility program of UNINET, and we got the very good attention and support, and also congratulate from the all higher position in the MT-GT, like National Secretariat and also senior official. So that's why during this spirit, we would like to connect, yeah, among our students in these three countries to exchange their views, exchange their knowledge, and also creating the new networks amongst the participant and also amongst the audience of this program. So we believe that this program not only for 1, 2, 3 series, but we hope we will continue even the pandemic situation end in this year. But this good program, we can say that this is as the new normal of the virtual mobility. So maybe in the future we will have face-to-face mobility and also virtual mobility, or maybe virtual program like this one. This one. So once again, we can sorry, congratulate for all the speakers today, and also we hope that you can get more input from others, participants from other countries, and then you can share to your friends and your colleagues in your own university. Okay, let's do our first series today. So with the, we say Alhamdulillahirrahmanirrahim, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So we launched this program this morning for the first series of IMT-GT UNINET Virtual Mobility Program, Teen Talk Project Plus, reducing inequality through accessible and inclusive education, a trade-off for developing countries. Thank you very much for all. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much to Dr. Mozailin Afan for your opening remarks. And I noted that we hope that we can meet each other face to face later on, hopefully. Now we will hear also some words from Mr. Muhammad Akhir Abdul Rahman as a Deputy Director Center for IMT-GT, Sub-Regional Cooperation, and to Mr. Muhammad Akhir Abdul Rahman, whenever you are ready, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Izan, moderator for our program today. Honorable Dr. Mozailin Afan, Chairman of Office of International Affairs, Universitas Syiah Kuala. Honorable Dr. Kismullah Yusof, Keynote Speaker, Universitas Syiah Kuala. All representatives from Universitas Syiah Kuala and Universitas Andalas, Indonesia, University Malaysia Perlis and University Utara Malaysia, Taksin University and Prince Sokla University, Thailand. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Sawadikap, and good morning. It gives me a great pleasure to be here virtually today for the IMT-GT UNINET Virtual Student Mobility Program, Teen Talks Project Plus, Reducing Inequality Through Accessible and Inclusive Education, a trade-off for developing countries. On behalf of CIMT Director, Pak Firdaus Dahlan, he asked me to convey his apology for couldn't joining us this morning, since given that at this moment of time, CIMT are hosting our first webinar program, Race to Recovery, promoting sustainable energy in the sub-region, under the working group of environment. Firstly, I take this opportunity to thank the IMT-GT UNINET, Universitas Syiah Kuala Indonesia as host, and University Malaysia Perlis and University Utara Malaysia, Taksin University and Prince of Sokla University, and Universitas Andalas as co-hosts for the successful arrangement on a one-day first series of UNINET Virtual Student Mobility Program. I was informed the main objective of our program today is to develop our university students with a specific skill based on current issues and challenges. CIM hope that the recommendation outcome from series of this mobility program would fit into our IMT-GT UNINET Council meeting and later as inputs for the formulation of second IMT-GT Implementation Blueprint 2022-2026. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought to light already existing challenges to education that have not been adequately addressed for far too long. It has highlighted alarming inequalities within the across countries that must be tackled urgently to guarantee everyone's right to education. Since the outbreak, IMT-GT countries have taken their steps in implementing home-based teaching and learning classes. However, we fear that due to accessibilities, whether it's on infrastructure, ICT, or other hard infrastructure, some of our students are left behind without connectivity. I would like to share thoughts to you on some of the ways in which universities can help the sub-regional cooperation or in general to the world to overcome these challenges. The crisis leaves our world to be incredibly fragile and vulnerable. Not only do we need to stay the course with our new normal way, but we need to pick up the pace and take more ambitious and decisive actions. We must turn the COVID-19 crisis to an opportunity But to do so, we must harness our evidence-based policy action to address the socio-economic impact of the pandemic and help countries recover better. CIMT strongly support continuous initiatives taken by UNINET under the UNINET Virtual Mobility Program. We note that last year, UNINET successfully conducted 5 series of this program. For the first topic today, we hope our students here today will discuss on how to ensure the quality of education in terms of inclusive and equitable, that no one left behind. And secondly, how to promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Access and participation in higher education is widely seen as a way to reduce inequality. For more than 20 years from its inception, with 27 members, IMT-GT UNINET has been committed to widening participation and access to university education. The UNINET provides numerous opportunities for collaboration venturing beyond academia and is including the private sector and both central and local government. This allows for strengthened collaboration initiatives in the sub-region, including, but not limited to, first, soliciting and recruiting help from external sources of funds to support activities under the project of IMT-GT UNINET. Second, promoting staff and student exchange opportunities among participating members institutions and raise education standards within this sub-region, and supporting and collaborating in research area beneficial to the development of IMT-GT. These initiatives are manifested through UNINET programs, such as the UNINET Internship, UNINET Scholarship, Telemobility Projects, and many more. Thus, IMT-GT offers a platform for the university member to ensure that students, teaching staff, and the university members in general can achieve the overarching goals of inclusive education and that no one in sub-region is left behind. During the pandemic outbreak, end of 2019, lots of activities under IMT-GT program, including UNINET mobility program, cannot be organized like normal. This due to the restricted movement and closure of our international borders, which has limited our movement. However, after a year with the pandemic, it is proven that once we adapt to the new normal, the progress as planned are successfully implemented by our working groups and UNINET itself. For this year, 2021, CIMT noted that there are lists of proposed together with the ongoing program to be implemented by IMT-GT UNINET, example, the Virtual Mobility Program, the Summer Program, and the Internship Program. I am delighted to note that UNINET is leading on this initiative. Our leaders strongly believe in the IMT-GT as a great testbed to initiate models of economic and urban growth. Among us, we have provinces with varying characteristics and along varying growth paths. I hope we could continue to share and learn our experiences in implementing the proposed program or projects. SIM and the Secretariat will assist UNINET to ensure the proposed program will be delivered as planned. And we do hope next year we can have it physically. Amen. Finally, I do hope all participating students will have a fruitful discussion throughout our program today. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much again to Mr. Muhammad Abdul Rahman for delivering his word related to the project of CIMT and our today's session. So I noted that there are some notes that we have to remember that education is something that should not left behind for everyone, particularly in sub-regional. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we will begin the event today with the keynote speech. In this case, will be delivered by Dr. Kismullah Yusuf, Master of Education. Before we start, I would like to read the curriculum vitae of Dr. Kismullah Yusuf. So Dr. Kismullah Yusuf completed his bachelor study in English education at Universitas Syah Kuala in 1980. He then earned his master's degree in adult education in 1985. then followed with his doctoral degree in training and development in 1992, both at Oregon University in USA. So, and then he also received an honorary doctorate degree from Deakin University in 2009. And for his role in establishing many school and social community activity in Aceh and in international as well. Previously, he was a senior lecturer. Now he acts as an advisor at Universitas Syah Kuala. He is also exchange associate professor at the University Pendidikan Sultan Idris, Malaysia. He is also non-teaching post with Consortium of Asia Pacific Education University and consultant for national and international companies since 1993. Besides those education-related activity, I think this is awesome and it's quite unique. Other than those activity, he loves tailoring. So, right, without further ado, now let us call Dr. Andes Kismullah Yusuf, Master of Education, for delivering the keynote speech. To Dr. Kismullah Yusuf, whenever you are ready, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning everyone from 3 member countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. I was assigned by Pak Muzailin to share some experience that we have had and that I have had in enabling or in including many disabled learners to improve their potential and step up their career in life. I have been training many youth in remote areas, in Aceh, to empower themselves economically, educationally, and socially in their own community. They don't choose to be disabled. They don't choose to be unlucky within their community. It may be because of social environment. It may be because of inheritance. It may be because of disabilities that they have had during their life. And there are so many differences among our students in the classroom that we are not aware with. Inclusive education is a new mode of education that was introduced in Western countries, then spread out to the worldwide, including to remote areas in Indonesia. But we have to agree that we have been using inclusive education in our life. But the problem is that the teachers are not trained how to do it. Because many Indonesian classrooms are taught by Indonesian teachers without being trained how to be teachers that understand every learners in our classroom. There are students with a right brain or left brain in our classroom, but we don't know, but the teachers do not know them because they don't have knowledge and experiences on how to deal with the left brain and right brain students in our classroom. The teachers are teaching as usual without knowing that there are students with their own differences in their classroom. And many students want to inform their teacher that I'm different, but they don't know how to inform their teachers. Therefore, many are banging their head with that differences. And therefore, we need to understand our students in order to enable them to empower their own potential for the future of their life. They are gifted and talented students in our classroom, but the students are not aware of their gifted or talented, and the teachers also not aware of the gifted and talented student in the classroom. The reason, again, is because the teachers are not trained on how to deal with gifted and talented students. There are so many learning disabilities occurred in our classroom. The disabilities can be because of inheritance, as we mentioned, because of environment, because of the culture. My question is, how many teachers are trained on how to deal with so many students with differences in their classroom? And you know, there are so many students with the ability, with language competence. They can speak very well, but the knowledge may be not the same as the other students. Let me give you an example. UAS is Abdul Samad, is a leading figure of Islamic speech in Indonesia. His knowledge may be not as high as a leading professor in Islamic studies in Indonesia, but with his language competence and performance, he is able to deliver the speech much better than a very senior and high academic excellence in Islamic studies. But he or she does not have language competence and performance as high as UAS Abdul Samad. During my 48 years of teaching in my life, maybe more, because I started teaching when I was 16 years old, when conducting teaching practice after or before graduating of Sekolah Pendidikan Guru or teacher training school in my hometown. And we found there are so many dyslexia students. There are so many dyscalculia students. There are so many dysgraphia students. And there are so many dysgraphia students. And they are different. They don't know they are different. The teachers are not knowing that they are different. So both are walking in the dark room, the teachers and the students as well. Therefore, the teacher should understand their learners. Tom Cruise, Abhishek Bachchan, Albert Einstein, and Walt Disney were ignored by the teachers. by their teachers because they didn't know their potential. At that time, they didn't have this kind of knowledge taught at the teaching college, even in Western countries. Albert Einstein, for instance, was taken over by his mother to be a leading and genius academician in physics. His mother is the one who saved the potential of Einstein, not the teacher in the classroom, because the teacher were not aware of his potential, neither his mom at this time. You have to remember that Einstein started to speak at the age of 9. Before that, he didn't speak at all. And his dissertation is only 16 pages, 16, 6. Simple language. Simple language. My professor in the US, his master's degree was in physics. He told me he could not understand the book written, the original book written by Einstein. He has to read the book written by Einstein students to elaborate the mind and vision of Einstein. And there are many in our classroom, and we are ignoring them. If the teacher is ignoring them, who's to blame? In my view, the government should be blamed. The teachers, many of the teachers in Indonesia, I don't know in other countries, very few, they have undergone retraining in their profession. Unfortunately, in Indonesia, a lot of money was spent for re-educating teachers on Pancasila, state ideology, not on their own area of study, not on their profession. I don't blame that. The government should do that, but actually should use that fund more for teaching profession and find another way to train the teachers for state ideology. State ideology is also very important, but for the profession of teachers, use more on improving the profession of the teachers. Okay, and there are so many there are definitions on learning disabilities that we can share later on. You see the handwriting of dyspraxia. They could not lay out the word in the line of a sentence. And the parents are blaming them as stupid. And then the teachers add it up in the classroom that they are stupid, they are dumb. And that kind of perception among the students will lower their confidence. And we should inform, we should train the teachers that there are potential in every individual student in our classroom. It could be academic, could be sports, could be other form of career and professions. Muhammad Ali academically or academic performance in his classroom was not good. But he is so good in using space when fighting. So there are students with dyscalculia. And they have their own problem in dealing with that one. And there are indications that the teacher can see from the classroom when dealing with this kind of students. Bill Gates, Edison, Franklin were also considered disabled. But who is the richest person on earth right now? And who makes our classroom bright and visible today? Was a disabled learners. And Radcliffe, with the movie that you watch, he was a dyspraxia student. And if you see the way they write, the way they draw, was so funny when they were young. And there are ways to diagnose it, but the teachers are not trained. You see the handwriting of this graphia students is very, very bad. It's not neat, but they are potential in their mind. Okay, you see the type of spelling errors. Yeah. And if you want to watch one of the movie of disabled learners, or learners with difficulties in learning, you can watch a movie by Amir Khan. And our learning style divided into seven: visual, auditory, verbal, kinesthetic, logical, social, and solitary. You may find a friend during your primary, secondary, university level. He's not potential. He does not have good potential for future life, but he has another capacity, social learning style. Okay. We have different kind of intelligence among our students in the classroom. One of them is linguistics, used by politicians, because they are very good in making promises and in elaborating the program. But once they were elected, they forgot you. Or there are students with logical, mathematical intelligence. There are students with visual, spatial intelligence. 3 more minutes. There are students with musical intelligence, bodily kinesthetic intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, intrapersonal intelligence, naturalistic student, essential intelligence. Muhammad Ali on my studies used 9 of these, 8 of these 9 intelligence. The IQ might be lower, but he is able to use all kinds of intelligence to promote or to motivate himself to be the best among all the best on earth. He used his kinesthetic intelligence with a different way of leaning his body when fighting. Okay, I added up when I studied in the US with additional emotional intelligence and now with digital intelligence. There are learners in our classroom who are not good in math, not good in science, but give him a computer. He can manipulate everything in the computer within hours. And it takes days and months for us. It takes hours for him or her to use his digital intelligence. And there are differences in ways that we communicate. The West, the English-speaking people use a direct message when communicating with other people. The Arab and the Jews using the second one, and the Asian and other Eastern countries use the third one, and the Romanian use the fourth one, and the Russian use the fifth one. And we have different time concept. We have natural time, biological time, sacred time, religious time, and other so many kind of time. And we have different mood in our life. The mood can be daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, and parts of our life, and for lifetimes. But since the time is over, I have another 5. Let me finish this one before we go further for discussions. If you see the world leaders, they are also different. The way they communicate is different. We have to train these leaders in order to avoid the bigger war in the future. The war happened because of different culture, different perception, and brain function differently, as we mentioned earlier. The left brain person and the right brain person view the world differently and communicate with us differently. Okay, that's the end of overview of 54 slides of mine, and we can share it later on. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much to Dr. Kismullah Yusuf. A very awesome presentation, a very awesome message that we can gain. I highlighted that some points that the teacher competence and profession play a very important role in inclusive education. Understanding what every student wants inclusively is also the key, and government is the final decision maker to improve inclusivity in education. And it's important as well that there is a goal in everyone's mind that we should respect, we should communicate in a well manner, and we should appreciate. And last but not least is that the main important thing that we should realize that there are different in this world, in many things, in religion, in area, in people, there are many differences. But all we should do is to be together with in every situation as what it is the inclusivity means. Thank you very much again to Dr. Kismullah Yusuf for his keynote speech. I hope this can initiate our discussion further during presentation and during the question and answer. And ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to share the screen again. To screening. Okay. 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 Now I'll elaborate the presentation's rules and a little bit of housekeeping prior to introducing every team member that will be presenting in today's session. So first, each team will be allocated for 20 minutes for the whole presentation. And I'll inform you like around 2 minutes before the time is up. And by that time, you might conclude your presentation. Each of the team members should involve in the presentation at any time. The presenter may use any presentation aid or software as long as the content can be shared through Zoom platform. And a bit different with the previous project, then today's session, we will have 2 interim break and 2 question and answer. So first question and answer session will be after Team D and Team B present. And the second question and answer will be done after presentation of Team C and Team A. So in order not to get lost, so for every audience, every participant, you are allowed to post your question during the presentation. So just using your chat box, and then you post the question and then state your name, country, and mention for whom the question is asked in the chat box. And another bit information is that before today's session ends, there will be a concluding remark by the host university. In this case, will be presented by Universitas Syah Kuala. We will also have voting for best group presentation later on. And we will send the voting link as well. And a link feedback will be shared at the chat box in the end of the session. And an e-certificate will also be given to best group and as well as for the participant into this session. All right, now I would like to introduce the first team from Team A. So Team A will be represented by Dimas Siswoyo Umul Khairi from Universitas Syah Kuala. And then the team member consists of Sarfin Kumar Munianti, Nurin Batrisya binti Khalid Jeffrey from University Malaysia Perlis, and then Pimpakan Tongkayo and Napum Konsase from Thaksin University. Meanwhile, for the Team B, this team will be represented by Miss Debbie from Universitas Andalas, Mr. Tinghalan from University Malaysia Perlis, Miss Jirapia from Prince Songkla University, Miss Nurul Izzah Yahya from University Malaysia Perlis, Miss Solia from Prince Songkla University, and lastly is Mr. Hario Giras from Universitas Andalas. In Team C, we will have Sahara Pona from Universitas Syah Kuala. We'll have Lisna Yanti from Universitas Syah Kuala. We will have Nur Afifah Nuha from University Utara Malaysia. We will have Miss Halini from University Utara Malaysia, Amalin Samse and Vidyawati from Prince Songkla University. And last but not least, the Team D will be represented by Afif Akbari from Universitas Andalas, Miss Anita from University Utara Malaysia, Miss Nilai from Thaksin University, Miss Aziza from Universitas Andalas, Mr. Jeffrey Tan from University Utara Malaysia, and the last one is Mr. Pongsaton from Thaksin University. All right, without further ado, so the first team that is going to present is Team D. So I would like to call Team D.
Yes, we're here.
Okay, you're ready? Okay. So before you start, I would like, we would like to say goodbye to Mr. Muhammad Akhir Abdul Rahman for coming and then for opening remark for today's session. Due to certain activities, so he has to leave today's session. So once again, we would like to say thank you very much for Mr. Muhammad Akhir Abdul Rahman, and see you in the next session. All right, for Team D, are you ready?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah. Okay. Everyone's ready, right? Okay. Time is yours.
Before we start, I just want to make sure that can everybody see the presentation slide?
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
Well, awesome.
Right. So without further ado, let's begin our speech. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, a wise Chinese philosopher by the name of Confucius once said, if your plan is for a year, plant rice. If your plan is for 10 years, plant trees. However, if your plan is for 100 years, educate the children. This goes to show just how important education is for the long-term benefit of a country. Good morning, everyone. We are from Group D and would like to present our work on reducing inequality through accessible and inclusive education, a trade-off for developing countries. So, in short, I would like to introduce the members of Group D. I, a fifth as the leader of Group D. Alongside me are my companions from Indonesia and also the same Andalas University, Kak Zizi. And representing Malaysia and UUM are Anita and Jeffrey. Last but not least, representing Thailand and TSU, both Nilai and Congrab. Next. So here are the outline of our presentation. We'll be presenting 7 main points in this outline, starting with the background on why inequality is an issue. And we will end it with a conclusion on why education is the hope to reduce the inequality itself. Next. So ladies and gentlemen, have you ever wondered why 260 million people in the world do not have access to quality education? Well, if you are, you're in luck because we are going to comprehensively explain about it. So stay tuned, everyone. Next.
A very good morning, everyone. Now I would like to present in general about what is education and how of us know that education plays a key role in an inclusive system that makes the advantages of education available to all is one of the most powerful levers to make society more equitable. For your information, equity in education has 2 dimensions. The first is fairness, which basically means making sure that personal and social situation. The second is inclusion. In other words, ensuring a basic minimum standard of education for all. The 2 dimensions are closely interlinked. Education can help equip men and women, rich and poor, with equal voice and power. And also, it can drive social mobility, build more cohesive society, and ultimately build greater equality. Next, please.
Right, so before suggesting a solution on ensuring quality education that no one is left behind, we need to understand the 2 main actors that play the roles of quality education first. So who are they, the main actors of education? The first one, we have the institution, those who provide quality education, of course, for example, schools, universities, and other learning institutions. And the other one are the students or children, those who should receive the quality education. Actually, there are 2 categories of students that we are talking about in here. So who are they? The first one is the privileged and capable students, the students that can afford quality education. And the second one is the one that we have problem with, which is the underprivileged students, such as the deserted student, poor students, indigenous, and also disabled and special needs students. So what do these underprivileged students all have in common is that they have little to no opportunities for them to have an equitable education for all. So what we suggest is that educational institutes alongside the government should provide high quality academic pathway programs that are tailored to not only those who are capable, but also to those who are underprivileged. Such students would be accommodated with supportive and culturally appropriate learning environment that also caters to their needs. Next.
So how to promote lifelong learning opportunity for all? We believe that the biggest obstacle to promote lifelong learning is that most of the adults and elderly prefer money over knowledge. So to promote lifelong learning, the main target group should be the adults and elderly. Here, we have these 4 ways to promote according to the parties. First, the government. Government should encourage employers to sponsor their employee to pursue education by providing tax exemption to the employers. Next, they could raise awareness campaign for the citizen precisely on the adults and elderly on the importances of having lifelong learning. Next, the society. The employers could have a policy that required their employee to join courses to keep themselves updated with the latest knowledge. As for us, the individual, we can help in promoting lifelong learning by spreading the awareness campaign, share it to our social media such as Twitter, and encourage people nearby us to pursue their education. That's all for how to promote lifelong learning opportunity for all.
All right, next, I would like to explain some examples of good practices on implementation of inclusive and lifelong learning in Indonesia. So, Indonesia as a country has come a long way in providing education for its people. Although it's not perfect, efforts have been made in order to ensure the inclusivity of education for Indonesian youth. So, some examples are as follows. On the first sector, which is economics, we have the university tuition system, also known as UKT. This is a system that allows people to pay public university tuition fees based on their socioeconomic levels. The amount of tuition that each student pays is dependent on their parents' income. So this system has helped many young people of Indonesia pursue a higher level of education regardless of their background. The second sector, we have the gender, and then the program is called Gender Mainstreaming in Education. This is a program coined by the Ministry of Education and Culture, and it promotes equality by giving the same opportunities and treatments for both boys and girls. And the curriculum is also the same for all, and the teaching methods are free from gender stereotypes and bias. The third one is for students with special needs. We also have special education. This is made because not every child is the same. And mainstream education may be quite difficult for children with disabilities, both physically and mentally. So therefore, the government has provided schools for children with special needs so that every child could still receive the quality education that they deserve. Next.
As for Malaysia, first, the government provides part-time degree. There is a university called Wawasan Open University that offered part-time degree to the people that are working while studying. This allowed their students to have a full-time job on daylight and attend the classes during night or weekend. Next, the government also provides short courses or training aids to the unemployed citizen under a project called Pejana Kerjaya managed by Pekeso. This is established due to the high unemployment rate after the COVID-19, where the unemployed citizen could attend those short courses online and get new knowledge while getting some allowance once they complete those courses. Next.
As for Thailand, apart from schools and any other institutes, we have CLCs, or we call it Community Learning Centers. The main target group is changing in age from 15 to 59, with emphasis on those without previous or current opportunities to learn, and those who are disadvantaged, disabled, and those living in rural and remote areas. The common thread is that CLCs offer lifelong learning opportunities to all members of the community based on their specific needs and local context. CLCs are important hubs for non-formal education and informal activities to promote lifelong learning across the country. Their non-formal programming includes, for example, the content areas of literacy and basic education, while the continuing education includes such as life skills and social development. Next up, we have MOOCs, or we call it Massive Open Online Courses, where there are various free online courses from, for example, Chulalongkorn University, Chula MOOC, which they provide tons of courses for everyone to access in many kinds of fields, namely Arabic in your daily life, law for business, coding, environment, and even dog lover, and many more. Other than that, Thai MOOC, which is produced by the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation, collaborates with 40 renowned universities, providing free courses for all. For instance, digital media creation on social networks and media design for advertising. For CLCs, You guys have to, highlight this one. The most highlighted one is that they are all free and you can access them anytime and anywhere in the world. And we may wonder why the government and university sectors have to implement this for people wherever they are. It is because they encourage and strengthen lifelong learning. Moreover, this is the bonus point. We get the certificates from these online programs once we complete them, and some courses are directly from the universities themselves. Next, please.
Right, so next on our agenda is the limitation for quality education. So for Indonesia, one main limitation that hampers the process of acquiring accessible and inclusive education in Indonesia is that for many years, Indonesia are centralized in terms of their geographical location. A term commonly known among Indonesians is the Java-centric, which means that every part of improvement, development, and innovations are heavily focused to the Java island, which is why it is centralized in Java. Other places such as Sumatra, Borneo, Sulawesi, and especially Papua has been impacted by this. And as a result, for many years, those places outside of Java are poorly developed, lack of quality human resources, inadequate facilities, which ultimately creates unequal opportunity for a fair education. Next.
I would like to share some points about of Malaysia. Firstly, many of rural schools do not have proper infrastructure and learning facilities. There are research that in 2005, which was 767 primary schools and 28 secondary schools, did not enjoy 24 hours electricity supply. And even there was not clean water supply in 1,517 primary schools and 68 secondary schools. Next, there are some challenges faced in Malaysia for students with disabilities, which lack of infrastructure and special devices for disability students. Moreover, disability students are lack of motivation and also unequal opportunities in taking subject in university or participating in any activities. Other than that, resources is also among the main challenges faced in Malaysia, such as financial constraint, lack of interpreter service, and lack of teachers who have skill in sign language. Next, please.
With regard to Thailand, inequality in education remains a critical issue, which can be tackled by consolidating small schools. It is a large school budget from the government to support huge schools that leads to the inequality of educational opportunities available for children in both urban and rural areas. Needless to say, big schools are better than small schools. Small schools lack both sufficient state funding as well as the teacher needed to increase the quality of teaching and the performance of students. Aside from budget allocation, the lack of economic progression in Thailand greatly affects its citizens. Often, there are financial or social reasons. For instance, schools are too expensive, resulting in families cannot afford the costs associated with school attendance. Likewise, some families prefer to withdraw their children from education so as to help at home, support family occupations, or to do other work. Next slide, please. In terms of limiting factors in inclusive education, there are barriers that the country needs to overcome, such as fiscal, attitudinal, as well as knowledge barriers. With regard to fiscal barrier, not only the infrastructures, the arrangements in schools, but also transportation. The lack of wheelchair ramps in school buildings, malls, parks, playgrounds, washrooms, not to mention public transportation, is the main difficulty identified by several students with these disabilities, especially when they go to school or public places. Regarding the knowledge barrier, some teachers did not know how to modify the curriculum for students with this disability. Last but foremost, prejudice against those with differences can lead to discrimination. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the attitudinal barrier that should be changed so as to assess to students' ability, not their disability. Next, please.
Right. So for possible accessible and inclusive education trade-off for both Indonesia and Malaysia, we found out that it is very similar actually. So the current problem that is the biggest problem that Indonesia and Malaysia is currently having right now is the COVID-19 pandemic. And as a result for the COVID-19 pandemic itself, it affects many sectors, including economics, lifestyle, and especially education. So what have the Indonesian and the Malaysian government tried to do in order to fix the education itself during the COVID-19 pandemic is number one, by providing internet quotas to students. So for example, Indonesian government are collaborating with providers such as Telkomsel, XL, Indosat, and etc. Whilst the Malaysian government with a company called Yes to aid the B40 household. Next, the government also tried to facilitate the institution with e-learning gizmos or technologies. Like for example, Malaysian government are providing free use laptop to the B40 household, a collaborative with a private company named Dell. And lastly, the hybrid education on and offline. A hybrid education is actually a system that allows an adaptable learning environment for both students on and offline. So what we suggest is that post-pandemic situation, because there's going to be a budget cut, government alongside university and institution should look into investing on online learning, not focusly on the offline learning itself, because it tackles down the problems created by the COVID-19 itself in the very first place. Next.
As for Thailand, the trade-off is what we encounter every day. It's you who choose to lose something in order to get something. Nothing is free, isn't it? So this is the same position as the government now. So let's give attention to this. A trade-off always comes with opportunity cost. According to Thailand Development Research Institute, 20% of the country's national budget goes toward education for schools, institutes, and students, which is basically a lot. So the average salary of teachers at Thai public schools has also doubled in the last decade. It is because the government needs to push and develop Thai citizens, especially young generations, to run the country rightly in the future and to enhance the quality of education. Therefore, the government put a lot of effort into education in order to see the best outcome, which is seen as big pictures, such as PISA score, the International Science Olympiad, and even English scores. Though the government has to pay the opportunity cost and expect to see a big result, it seems to have a high risk on those investments, as Thailand has faced many challenges throughout the decades, and education now is depressingly low compared with those students in Asian countries, especially in developing countries. Thus, what I aforementioned is the reason why the government sector holds the 15-year education with a quality policy so that Thai students can get the education fairly. Next, please.
Okay, so based on our discussion, we can conclude that thus far we can all agree that education plays a vital role in our lives. It is the key to help us reduce inequalities within our countries. So while education has come a long way over the past half century or so, we still have not quite realized our goal in making an all-inclusive education for every member of the society. There are still limitations that hinders us from achieving this goal, such as lack of budget from the government, centralized development, and lack of proper infrastructure and learning facilities. However, this is not to say that there is no effort that's been made. There's just more that could be done. So not all hopes are lost. There are still ways and efforts to be done in order to achieve equality. Therefore, it is imperative for us to step in and work together to allow every person to receive the fair and impartial education that we all deserve.
Right. So last but not least, we would like to thank the 6 universities that made it possible for the 3 countries to collaborate and create this event of IMT-GT. And a special thanks to Kat Diva for the guidance she has provided us in her mentoring session, which really helped us create this presentation possible. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is all for our presentation. Thank you very much, and we really do hope to see you all in the near future.
All right. Thank you very much from Team D. It's an awesome presentation, very cheerful, highly spirited from every team member, and I hope other team will also present it this way. What I highlight is that some action taken, particularly during COVID-19, that we should accommodate everyone with the internet, e-learning, hybrid education, and yeah, because COVID is just in our way now, so online learning is preferred than the offline learning. And it's also highlighted that economic budget, learning facilities, centralized system should be controlled very well, not only by the government, but also us that we can monitor as well. So now I would like to call Team B. Team B ready? Yeah, just go ahead. Time is yours.
Right, good morning everyone, ladies and gentlemen. So there's a famous quote by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, which is educationalists should be build the capacity of the spirit of inquiry, creativity, entrepreneurial, and more leadership among students and become their role model. This shows how education is important to the human being in our daily life. So today's topic, reducing inequality through accessible and inclusive education, a trade-off for developing countries. So I would like to introduce my teammates. First of all, it's Debbie from Indonesia, and followed by me, Tinggalan Manimaran from Malaysia, and followed by Jirapnya from Thailand, and also Nur Iza from Malaysia, Solia from Prince of Sokla University, and also Haria from Indonesia. So today we'd like to present a few topics, which is interaction, what can be done, lifelong learning, good practices, possible causes, paid off, and also conclusion. First of all, the introduction. So, educational inequality is the unequal distribution of academic resources, including but not limited to school funding, qualified and experienced teachers, books and technologies to social excluded communities. These communities tend to be historically disadvantaged and oppressed. More times than not, individuals belong to groups also denied access to school with abundant resources. And I would like to pass it to my friend Daddy. Thank you.
Yep. In terms of inclusive and accessible education that no one is left behind, there are several things that we can do for making sure this this aim. So the first one is the assertion of human rights and strengthening policies. So we know that every country has their own policies or regulations in order to assert human rights about education for all. But then the problem here is that there are few people who still have closed-minded thinking and conservative thought about education for all. So some people still think that this group of people only this group of people who have rights for education, but this group do not have. So in order to really assert the human rights and policies that has been made by policymakers or other decision makers, maybe the policymakers or other decision makers can make some additional regulation in order to really assert prior policy about education. But then it also needs the engagement of civil society and local communities, as some people still have conservative thoughts, whether regarding gender, race, disabilities, family background, and so forth. And by then, continuous monitoring and maintenance of policies are also necessary, as well as the policymakers and other decision makers. The next one is increasing educational funding. So we know that not everybody in this world is born from rich family. So there are some people who don't have enough money to go to schools and universities. So what we can do, or what government can do, is that by increasing educational funding, so such as scholarship program and such, can be so helpful for those poorer people, or those from poorer families. And then the rehabilitation of school facilities and resources. So inadequate school facilities and infrastructure of school may affect youth's desire to go to schools and universities. So what we can do here is that the rehabilitation of these facilities, maybe such as building reconstruction, and also the laboratory improvement, library, and so forth. And talking about resources, however, this can include trained and qualified teachers. Because why? We need education to be so qualified in order to result qualified students for the better future. So that means that we need to provide trained and qualified teachers, because teachers who have only a Bachelor of Education degree is not enough. So they need to have some a training program, and maybe they can have such a test or interviews in order to make sure that these is teachers that can be provided to schools and universities. And technology and repairing connection. We can see in this situation, we are facing pandemic situation, that we have to do online meetings, online classes, online learning. So the connection or the signal is the most important thing that we need to make sure. But then in some remote areas, or maybe in some rural areas too, connection problems still happen. And also, not all people can operate technology or softwares or hardwares. So this should be made sure that connection problem can't never happen again. And maybe we can do such a training program for those people in terms of technology. And the last but not least is that the expansion of academic selection path. We know that most universities in the world open the enrollment or application for study for students by having tests or interviews, or maybe write a motivation letter or such. But then, in order to expand the chance or opportunities for everyone to go to schools or universities, maybe schools and universities can expand the path of academic selection, so that everyone will feel that I have the same opportunity, I have the equal rights to go to schools or universities that everyone go. So not only having interviews or tests, but we can open such another path of academic selection. And this will be explained later. Thank you. Next.
Okay, what is lifelong learning? Actually, lifelong learning, hearing the sentence about lifelong learning, we already know that, oh, it's about an ongoing process of learning. Actually, lifelong learning is a process. It's known as how a person actually motivates him or her to pursue the knowledge. A person who have like a heart driving of like motivation, of inspiration, gotta keep moving and keep plugging away. And that's very important for a person to pursue the knowledge. And the second is that the environment-wise studying is also important. This means that the factors, including like the clutter, the noise, the comfortable while learning is very important for studying. You know, like the positive and negative impact while we're studying is have a very big role while we're studying. So that's why the environment while we're studying is count as a important aspect of this kind of lifelong learning. And the third is that the ability to choose what they want to learn. Even one of the greatest all the time of the world, Steve Jobs, he is a CEO of co-founder of iPhone, say that your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And that's the problem, because this problem actually happening even in my country, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia, because the parents sometimes, like they're pressure their children to like, the student don't have the capable, cannot be able to choose what they want to learn. So as a parent, we should like encourage and support our children so that can make like the clear vision of like the desire of what they want to study in the kind of particular field. So that's going to make the student happy. And that is lead to the last main key points here, which is the happiness. It's undeniable that happiness actually plays a very important keys of studying, because a person who happy while studying, it's going to like, to persuade something. Imagine all people in country happy while studying. That's a very, that's mean that we're successful to decrease the inequality in education. So that's why happiness is important. For example, a clear, obviously, example that's happening in the world right now is for example, the education of Finland right now. That's Finland is actually the first ranking in the top of the world. The education are absolutely like excellent, because of the secret of that's successful of how the government actually increased the education is because of the great of the inner feeling of the student while studying, because they're happy. So that's proof at all that happiness is actually a very important vital tool for the student while we're studying. We need the happiness while studying. And then next, Tinghalan, please lead to the next. How can we ourselves promoting lifelong learning? The first we can do is that promote opportunities throughout life. And second is that promote learning of life for our formal system. And the last one is that link all systems together. How can we do, promote ourselves promoting lifelong learning? We actually can providing the inclusive education is the example of this kind of how can we ourselves promoting lifelong learning. Because of, let me clarify to you about the inclusive education. Inclusive education is about how we develop and design our education, our classroom, our program and activities, so that all students can participate together. The together is the main key points, For example, like right now, what's happening in Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia is that sometimes a student, the disability student, who have no opportunity to study with their friend because of inequality of normal education. The government is not like preparing for the particular tool for them to use to following friend while studying, because in the end of the day, if they're studying with the kind of peers, the kind of friend, and they're not ready, that can can lead eventually to bullying, which is the main issue here. So imagine if all students can, we can participate in all tool or preparing together. It's such a perfect condition by providing this inclusive education. So I strongly believe that inclusive education are actually a kind of tool that can decrease the inequality education so that all students can study equal. When we're equal, we're happy. And when we're happy, lifelong learning is going to happen. And the next slide is about the example of good practices on implementation. Tinghalan, could you please? Next. Yeah, this one. Example of good practices on implementation, inclusive and in lifelong learning at PSU, Prince of Songkhla, and Korean University, which is my university. The first is that we're providing student scholarship. There are several scholarships for the students, such as a scholarship for the student activist, scholarship to support like tuition fees, and scholarship for the president for student club. Second is that the general education subject that actually a lot of faculties actually providing this kind of general education, such as the companion animal, the drugs and health, and the introduction to the intellectual property. And the next one is the example of good practices that actually happen in Indonesia for lifelong learning. The example is that the Hafiz Al-Quran Scholarship, also known as Beasiswa Hafiz Al-Quran, is awarded by the Islamic University of Indonesia. An applicant can enroll to the university by memorizing and reciting Al-Quran clearly. That's amazing, right? And this scholarship is open to both undergraduate and diploma students. This is a good program that offers a good chance to those who want to enroll to the university but cannot afford to the education fee. Let me clarify something. You know, like what it's like really hard to just hard driving to find more than a lack of money. That's an issue over, I mean, like a big nation of a trade of the developing countries right now. Sometimes we're thinking that, you know, inequality education is just about because of the lack of money, but that is not so. Sometimes the lack of opportunity is actually can causing a million time damaging more than the lack of money. But when we providing this kind of, you know, opportunities such as a scholarship, enroll to the university without the duty fee, something like that is kind of, that is the opportunities that doesn't knock at everyone's doors. That's a very important for the inequality education. That's opportunity that we're providing for each other. And the next one is the example of good practices on implementation of inclusive and lifelong learning in Malaysia, which is free education for illiterates in Sabah Sarawak. As we know that Sabah Sarawak is a remote area, and most children they're illiterate. Most children are unable to go to school because of poverty, because of the lack of money and non-citizen. But however, the government take action to this kind of serious problem because they provide free transportation for students living in the rural areas and actually raising parent awareness on the importance of education. So that is very important points of, you know, of how we can decrease the inequality education when we actually embrace each other. Thank you.
So, right now we are going to discuss about possible causes of limitation factors in accessible and inclusive education in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. Next. So the first factor is poverty and disability. Just like Dr. Kismullah said just now, disability students always being treated unfairly. And can you imagine being poor and disabled at the same time? If what poverty is already one terrible thing that could happen to us. So one example that happens, this happens in Malaysia and also Indonesia, is there is an entrance test in primary schools. So mostly this entrance test is being conducted if you want to send your kids to high prestigious school, and only students who are able to take the test well will be selected. And students with special needs and limited capabilities will have a difficulty to qualify. In some other cases, school teachers also bluntly rejected students with special needs because they do not want to be bothered to educate these kids. And one example in Thailand is teachers' stigma toward slow learner. So mostly teachers in Thailand simply assume that slow learner kids has problem with learning disabilities. But learning disabilities is something that you cannot simply diagnose just by seeing it. So let us know what is learning disabilities. Learning disabilities are disorders that affect the ability to understand or use spoken or written language, do mathematical calculation, coordinate movements, or direct attention. And it is due to genetic and or neurobiological factors that alter brain functioning. And these students that has already been self-diagnosed by the teacher that they has learning disabilities, when a clinical psychologist ran an assessment, they actually only small portion of these kids, which is about 4.7% of the kids, actually had learning disabilities. Next, please. So the second limitation factor is cultural difference. We have orang asli ethnic in Malaysia, and they live in totally different culture than us. They are one with the nature. They do not have technologies, and they also depend on the earth to survive their days. For example, they grow plants and vegetables and also hunt down for food. And they are not used to attend school, read books, writing, and calculating. Next example in Indonesia is tribal and clan culture among Papua community. Apparently, this community, they still practice tribal and clan culture. So when the government, when the Ministry of Education send the teachers to teach the kids in Papua, they often look down upon the teachers because the teachers are not from their tribal and clan affiliations. And this somehow make the teachers feel uncomfortable to teach because, for example, can you imagine you are being sent to the kids, but it's like you do not deserve to teach their kids. So next, please. So the third factor is lack of required facilities, and it has insufficient laboratory apparatus in urban and rural areas, and also no connection in remote areas. And I believe that this happens in all countries, not only these countries. Next, please. So fourth factor is socio-economic conditions. So one third of population in Southeast Asia at the average lives below poverty line, and poor families do not prioritize education anymore because they believe that by working, earning money, and bring food to the table, is more important than learning. And most of the poor students, they do not have time to attend the conventional education and training system because they need to work as part-timer to support their families. And last but not least, next please, low appreciation toward education. And this is magnified by the fact that many school or even university graduates unable to land a job and remain unemployed. And high school leavers, they tend to find job as soon as graduated because it is influenced by media these days that you do not need to pursue higher education in order to be happy. You just need more money to be happy. As for them, like money is happiness.
And then the next is the possible trade-off for the developing countries. In this case, there are two crucial sectors that might be affected. The first is the economy, and then the second is the social sectors. And in the economy, as to how the previous speakers have mentioned, and as well as the previous group even also mentioned that how to provide such an accessible and inclusive education, it takes a huge amount of budget. And in contrary, we are currently in a pandemic situation in which the whole world economic or the global economic itself has collapsed by last year, and the current trend is that every country is trying to improve the economy to restore the economic conditions. However, our agenda right now is backlashing again the current agenda of almost all of the countries around the world that they have to improve the economy. So to make it simple, that trying to provide such an accessible and inclusive education right now means that we have to hamper, or it will affect our economic growth. And beside of the economic sectors, our social sectors will also be affected. The classic conflict or classic problem between the majority and oppressed minority might happen under the notions of inclusive educations, where everyone from any ethnicity and any culture might be coming into one class. And we believe that this kind of problem not only happen in Indonesia or Malaysia, but also happen in Thailand and as well as another Southeast Asian country, because we believe that the conflict between the majority and minority is always happening, especially for Indonesia, for example, the conflict between the Chinese descendants and the local Indonesian people under the tensions of post-colonialism, or even the problem with the ethnic of orang asli in Malaysia with the local Malaysian people. We see that the parents of this oppressed minority are actually traumatized, that they don't want to send their children to the public school. Instead, they send their children to private school or even homeschooling, or even not sending their student to school at all. To conclude our group presentation, that we as the group B believe that accessible and inclusive education is important matters for the developing countries, especially Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. However, to provide the accessible and inclusive education right now, there are still things that lacking in our government or in our educational sector, such as the infrastructures. We are lacking in the teachers, as well as we need more scholars, provide scholarship for the poor. We believe that providing accessible and inclusive education for everyone is a good way to reducing the inequality. However, this approach or this policy might affect another sector, such as hampering our economic growth rate or triggering social issues among the society. That's all from our group. And before I ending our presentation, I would like to thank everyone that have contributed to help us conducting these presentations. Thank you for the convener, the Universitas Syah Kuala, as well as another university that has participated, and special my sincere that I cannot hello, check, am I audible? And especially for the mentor William from University of Syah Kuala. And that's all from our group. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, again, thank you very much for Team B. It's also a presentation, a little bit over for in terms of the time. That's all right. So, but we got the message from you guys. So it's awesome presentation, and I highlighted a unique point from you compared to Team D, that you highlight that giving scholarship for everyone is the opportunity to give inclusivity in education. So even though this might influence other sectors like economy as well, so there should be a trade-off in this case. For Team D and Team B, I would like to thank you all for your awesome presentation. You've done a good job. I guess it's the preparation should be so hard, and with this good presentation. So at the moment, we will have a first interim break for 10 minutes. So as I told you before, for all of you, for all audience or for all participants that would like to ask a question upon the presentation that was given by Team B and Team D, so you are allowed to do by posting your question in the chat box, or you can also ask your question about the keynote speech that was previously delivered by Dr. Kismullah Yusuf. You are also allowed to do that. But please post your name and then to whom your question and from what university are you. So we will get back in 10 minutes. So right now the time is not 10:47. So we will be back in 10:57. Is it okay? All right. All right. See you guys in 10 minutes. 1 minute before we start the question and answer. Are you guys ready? All the participants coming back?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So we'll have 10 minutes. 20 minutes for question and answer. Let me check the schedule. Yeah, it should be 20 minutes for the question and answer. We don't have any question from you. So if you would like to ask a question, just feel free to open up your microphone and maybe turn on your camera as well, so that we can know that you would like to ask a question. Or maybe you can raise your hand as well if you would like to ask a question. Right? Okay, but now we will ask Dr. Kismullah Yusuf first to share his expertise and maybe a little bit of comment on the presentation done by Team D and Team B. To Dr. Kismullah Yusuf, whenever you are ready, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm back. The presentation of the first group this morning is well organized, and they have conducted good research within their own country for accessibility of education in rural areas. And they have good collaboration between member countries of UNINET, member universities of UNINET, and member countries of IMT-GT. They also provide good example of inequality of education among the different group of community in these countries. In the second group presentations, their research is also quite very good, and they have collaboration between the groups of members of UNINET in Malaysia, in Thailand, and in Indonesia. One good example that they gave is Indonesian schools in Sabah and Sarawak, and also the participations of education among the ethnic origins of Malaysia, either in Malaysian Peninsula or in Sabah and Sarawak. I have visited Indonesian schools in Sabah and Sarawak, and this IMT-GT can use the fund from every countries of IMT-GT to assist the learners, the poor learners in Sabah and Sarawak. Many are using homes or houses of members of the community in that region to start their schooling. And there is one school being built in Sarawak or in Sabah, I don't remember, but I went there when it was just completed, and need to be assisted by excellent group of UNINET members. Either, especially for Indonesia, they can use KKN program, Kuliah Kerja Nyata, real community services, with the funding from each university. So I think I propose that the UNINET of Indonesia coordinate a program, a special program for Indonesian students in Sabah and Sarawak. The Malaysian government is willing to help, but they could not because hundreds of children there, maybe thousands of children in those two Malaysian states do not have birth certificate because they were born in a rural area and remote area in the two states of Sabah and Sarawak. So they are not eligible to register at the Malaysian public schools in the country, in the states. So KKN is a good program to assist this poor community. And KKN of Malaysia, if there is such a thing in Malaysia, can also use this kind of program to assist warga asli Malaysia. I found, and I went there several times when I worked 2 years ago in Malaysia and visited the school, and and saw the conditions of the school. The Malaysia has fund to support the program, but needs human resources that can go there and live there with the schools, with the children at the school. The culture of orang asli is very different from Malaysian at the whole. Education is not a priority for them. No hesitance of the parents to ask their children to be in the classroom so they can go whenever they want. So education is not a priority for many, but some I know, see the education is a potential for their children to develop their career and future role in the community. So both countries, Indonesia and Malaysia, can use Indonesia with KKN program to send students of Indonesia, best student from Indonesia, to teach at Malaysian school, at Indonesian school for migrant workers in Sabah and Sarawak. Not only the children, but many of the parents are not registered as Malaysian citizen or as legal workers in Malaysia, in Sabah and Sarawak. Actually, the platform has been settled by Indonesian consular in Kuala Lumpur, attaché in Kuala Lumpur, and Indonesian consular in both states in Malaysia. That's my point for the two group presentation. And I think we have to have a real implementation in the field. And the program, if there are two programs in two countries, let's say if there are Thailand student in Malaysia and Malaysian student in Thailand, we can use reciprocal program. And we can also use reciprocal program for international mobilization, international mobility of students, in which each partner university only pay airfare. The rest are paid by the host university. And the same thing is made when the student from Thailand go to Malaysia. So equal participation of both. Okay, that's my point for group 1 and 2 of this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, it's a huge experience that we can gain from Dr. Kismullah. So particularly related to the how we reach the sub-regional area, because they are the ones that mostly left behind, and it's sometimes not education as well, but it's also an economic and basic need of them that we should assess, because sometimes education is a part that was taught by some society that so much concern on that, but some other people like the one that is experience poverty or unlucky in terms of the economy, so they need basic of their life. So they need to put how to put food on their table. So we can, if we can access that, we can have an inclusivity not only in education but in every of our life.
Can I give one real example in Sabah?
Sure.
There were children of migrant workers, illegal migrant workers of Indonesia and Sabah and Sarawak. And there were children of school age, but they are not registered. And Malaysian school cannot admit them to study legally in their classroom. And these children originally from Makassar, and from Nusa Tenggara Barat, sneak in the school, went to school and see Malaysian students studying in the classroom. And the real teacher of Malaysia, what I mean, a real teacher of Malaysia, cannot see this kind of situation. Silently, without knowing, I don't know whether with the knowing of Malaysian government or not, but these children were included in the classroom, and they studied in the schools in Malaysia until they graduate from primary school and then continue to junior to secondary school. Later on, also admitted to universities. Because they are very smart, they are they win a scholarship from Malaysian government. When they are about to get the passport of Malaysia, they could not get the passport because they don't have birth certificate. So it was a dilemma for, there are many cases of such a thing in Malaysia, where the real teacher of Malaysia cannot see children wandering around the windows of the school to study. And I found that guy, and I had pictures of them, not one, but many. But finally, because they are so smart, Malaysian government provide them with a passport, meaning that they may be having citizenship in the future. No, they are studying in the US, and some others studying in European countries. And therefore, I urge the IMT-GT official office in Jakarta take the initiative to establish special program from members of UNINET universities in Indonesia, select I have using the channel that has been Indonesia. So we should start that program. If possible, I urge Pak Muzailin to start the program. Write a proposal to the rector, go to Jakarta and meet to the IMT-GT UNINET coordinator in Jakarta and propose a program, and if possible, start this year. The venue for education have been built, but the human resources are required from members of UNINET. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And the student from both groups continue doing a good job and motivate others to initiate real community services to provide education to equally to the poor school-age children in Sabah and Sarawak. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, I agree with that point. So we have to be an agent. Everyone should be an agent to promote inclusivity, not only for education, but in every sector, like economy particularly. Yeah, definitely agree. We are now, we should start actually. I got 3 questions here, but unfortunately we should start the next presentation. So I'll keep this and we will present this, or we will share this question in the second question and answer, okay? So right now, I would like to call Team C and Team A. Are you both ready for presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll start from Team C first. Okay, whenever you are ready, time is yours.
Hello everyone, good afternoon to all. Do you guys follow what's currently happens in the world? Do you guys know what is the inequality educational? Why did it happen and what affects it? Do you guys wish to know more about it? So today we from Team C will discuss about reducing inequalities through accessibility and inclusive education, a threat of developing in countries. We are Afifa, Nisha, Amali, Sahara, Fiti, and Nisna. So what do you guys know about inequality education? And what is inequality? Inequality education is the unequality distributions of academic resources, including but not limited to school funding, qualified and experienced teachers, books, and technologies to social exclude communities. It's happened efficacy various educational measure among country and even province or states within the country. As an example of inequality or difference in educational, this was the grades, the GPA scores, test score, dropout rate, college entrance statistics, and college completion rates are used to be the major educational success among different countries.
Now I'm going to do my presentation about what can be done to ensure the equality of education in terms of inclusive and equitable, that no one is left behind. First of all, deliver universal free education from pre-primary to secondary. This means that set out plans to ensure free, equitable, and high-quality primary secondary education for 12 full years, as agreed in Sustainable Development Goal 4 on education. For example, support the poorest, minorities, and children with disability with extra help to redress disadvantages so that they stay in a school and learning. My second point on that question is focus on policies that can help to deliver quality for all. That is, develop a full costed and funded strategy to deliver a trained, qualified, and well-supported professional workforce with enough teacher and other personnel to deliver education for all up to secondary school. My third and last point is deliver more equal education system. Develop national education plans that focus coherently and comprehensively on identifying pre-existing inequality in education. Producing data on gaps and needs and developing appropriate strategy. Ensure school and teachers are supported to address the unique learning needs of all students, including children with disability. This will require training teachers on different type instruction as well as a proper data collection and diagnosis.
All right, now let's move to the next question, which is how to promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Lifelong learning is rooted in the integration of learning and living, covering learning activities for people of all ages and gender in all life-wide contexts and through a variety of modalities, which together meet a wide range of learning needs and demand. Lifelong learning is a tool for developing quality of life of people. Only formal education during school age period is not enough. People need knowledge, skills, and up-to-date information help them to face and adjust themselves properly to the rapidly changes of society and environment. Nowadays, in the rapidly changing and complicated society, education is even more necessary. These are the ways to promote lifelong learning for all. First, promoting knowledge, understanding, and creating the right attitudes about lifelong learning to all, both the target groups and the lifelong education organizers across the country. Next, encouraging participation from all sectors of creating and promoting lifelong learning partnership networks for continuous cooperation and development. The Lifelong Learning Partnership Network may include individuals, family, community, government organization, and other organizations in the society. They can organize or take part in organizing or supporting lifelong education and strengthening cooperation among partnership network. The partnership network will be supported by advice and suggestion in providing lifelong learning activities and also finances, facilities, and other kinds of needed resources. Next, promoting every community to be learning community. Educators should promote and encourage people to become learning community. Learning community development process cover setting up lifelong education committee, developing lifelong education plan, organizing lifelong education activities, conducting following up activities, and continuously improving and organizing activities and sharing experiences to the network. And finally, developing educators and the personnel of lifelong education organizations or providers so that they can be regarded as professional performers.
Well, for the example of good practices on implement of inclusive and lifelong learning in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. For Indonesia, they have the Tumen Regency, which is the one of the district in the provinces of East Java, which has been used as an example of a model for developing schools that provide inclusive education. And for Malaysia, Nisha?
Okay, yeah, now I'm going to present about the example of good practices on implementation of inclusive education in Malaysia. There are few elements being highlighted in the implementation of inclusive education program in Malaysia. Okay, first of all, students. Criteria for the qualification to be included in an inclusive education program. A student with special needed has to pass certain assessment with a determined by Ministry of Education in Malaysia. Secondly, student placement. Committee of School Special Education Program will approve qualified student with a special needs to follow the inclusive education program. The students will be given a maximum of 3-month trial period in inclusive education. Thirdly, teacher and teaching skill. Mainstream teachers should be given professional development to manage the special needs students in their classroom. The included students should be follow the national curriculum in mainstream classroom. Modification on teaching material, preparation, and delivery approach can be made to ease their learning.
All right, for inclusive education in Thailand, the PSU or Prince of Songkhla University, which is my university, concern and try hard to address the unique learning needs of all students, including children with disability, minority, marginalized group, poorest, and out of school children. And PSU give priority to inclusive education as it is the most effective support for the student with disability. To solve this problem, they create the PSU MOOC for under the concept of infinite learning, that everyone can, at any age, can learn any place and time. And for the lifelong learning, because we are have the child same similar characteristic, so there are 3 lifelong learning. The first one is formal learning, which is a place in formal learning institute such as public or private university. Second one is non-formal learning, which is take the form of workplace or the job training program. The last one is informal learning that focus on activities. Next is possible causes of limitation, factor in accessible and inclusive education.
Law number 20 of 2003, Article 5 states that every citizen has the same right to receive education, but the data from the Ministry of Education and Culture state, out of a total 514 districts or cities in Indonesia, 62 of them do not have a special school. The Central Bureau of Statistics, or BPS, in 2017, note that only 18% of 1.6 million children with a special need in Indonesia receive inclusive education services. It is undeniable that there are some obstacles found in implementing the system. For instance, the lack of supporting facilities for inclusive education system, the limited knowledge and skill possessed by the inclusive school teacher that show how this inclusive education system has not been properly prepared. Moreover, the current general education curriculum does not accommodate the existence of children with different abilities. Furthermore, there are unequal understanding and attitudes among the community regarding inclusive education. Likewise, the school environment that are not fully accessible for the children with a special need. So based on this condition, systematic efforts are needed to cultivate inclusive education. It is hoped that in the future, inclusive education can run even better because with a more mature readiness in carrying out this system, it can fend off all the problem in the implementation of inclusive education in Indonesia.
Basically, the different countries have a different issue. Same in Malaysia. The most common issue that always arises among educational parts is lack or poor connection area and financial problems. What is poor connection area? It happens when the connection accessibility depends on where you are. The people who stay in the town or city must got the excellent connections. Meanwhile, those who stay in the village have a poor connection, which will make them unable to access education. Especially during this pandemics, in Malaysia, all education turned from face-to-face learning to online learning from home, such as like Zoom, Webex, and Gmeet. Next is family financial problem or less capable. This was a problem when family or parents have unstable income. This means they are unable to provide their children the gadget or smartphone for learning education. It also happens when there are family that has a lot of siblings. As an example, there is one high school child, one primary child, and a preschool child. So they are unable to provide functional gadgets needed during their online learning to all their children. In the end, their children will will miss their school learning.
For Thailand, I have divided into two main points. The first one is student. The first factor is family income. Poor children rarely can attend good public school because they are unable to break through the barriers of limited family income. The second one is attitudinal barriers. These barriers are spread to the negative perception. And for the social structure and government management, the first factor is teacher-student ratio. The number of teachers is not enough and suitable for number of students, which result in poor teaching and can have a good take care of all students. The second one is rural-urban divides. Schools in poor areas must stretch their resource needs, and individual teachers often teach multiple grades and subjects. Due to this inequality, the student in city demonstrates higher rate of improvement compared to those in rural area. The second one, the third one is environmental barriers or facilitate. This is the challenge faced by person with impairment, because sometimes the facility or the environment does not support them. And the last one in Thailand is the big factor is tutoring school. The rise of tutoring school reflect that the quality of education that's of the school cannot unable to meet their needs. And the last one is possible, accessible, and inclusive.
Now, how can we possible access an inclusive education trade-off? The first one is redistribution or reduced income inequalities. It means taking or reduced income from those with higher income and providing those income to those who with lower income. Do you guys know 40% of the population in growth rates of household expenditure or income per capita? They might to help is by providing tablets or laptops to needed students, especially during this pandemic. Most students need to learn online, so they need to have a stable connection or good gadget. So you guys we need to have a progressively achieve our and sustaining income growth of the bottom 40% of the populations at a rate higher than the national average. The second one is the blue ladder opportunity. How is it? It happens when we can improve the daycare and establishment small program for preschool at the children levels. Meanwhile, for high school students, the government can provide more sponsorship or scholarship to students needed and enrich extracting programs that can be joined by all students. Meanwhile, at college level, the government can intensive loans or scholarship like in Malaysia, we have PTPT and our government private scholarship to needs. Next one is take the edge of our discriminations. How can we do it? Government can reduce tuition fees. It's because some of the students might come from poor families, and it will be less burden to a family when the children goes into university. And that means promotes universal social, economics, and political inclusion. Now, still the proportions of people living below 50% of median income counts by sex, age, and personal disabilities. So we should empower and promote the socio-economics and political inclusion of all is irrespective of age, sex, disability, race, ethnicity, origins, religions, or economic to reducing inequality of education. Last but not least is to adopt fiscal and social policies that promotes equality. It measured by labor share of gross domestic product, GDP, comprising wages and social protection transfer. It will measure the percent of GDP derived from labor, which is inclusive of wages and social protection transfer. In the end, we can adopt policies, especially physical, wages, and social protection policies, and progressively achieve a greater equality in education. In conclusion, we can say that everyone should get equal education with excellent quality of education, not only for themselves, but we also for surrounding and country. We can ensure that every young person, especially the teens, has the opportunity to experience the incredible liberation of learning and benefit from the leveling effect of high quality education. In our opinion, the quality of education must improve so that everyone can access good quality education for everyone. Last ones, I want to give a big thanks to IMT-GT programs to give us the opportunity to give us to speak out about our opinions, and also big thanks to our mentors that always mentor our teams, and thank you.
Well done. Well, that's good presentation. Awesome, very clear. I highlighted some point that in Indonesia, there is a limitation in terms of facility. In Malaysia, the limitation is about connected area, financial issue, and also in Thailand, there are like problem in social structure and government management. But the most important thing that I highlight is in this case is that it's a bit different than other group, that you're mentioning about the GDP as well, that how a GDP involved to solve the inclusivity for education since the top level in each country. So well done for Team C. Now we're moving on to Team A. Team A, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to deliberate on Series 1, which is Reducing Inequality through Accessible and Inclusive Education, a trade-off for developing countries. Let me introduce my teammates from Group A. which is Dimas Siswayu and Umul Chairia Rahmatullah from Universitas Syah Kuala, myself Sarwin Kumar Muniandi and Nurin Batrisha binti Khalid Jeffrey from University of Malaysia Perlis.
พิมพากาบุญทองแก้ว and Napum Kunses from Thaksin University.
Without further ado, here we go with our table of content, which is background information, how to provide quality education, how to promote lifelong learning, together with the example of good practices, possible causes of limitation factors, and conclusion. Before we start, I would like to share a quick background information which include Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand. Let's begin with Malaysia, which contain complications such as events of fully fledged lifelong learning experience and lack of monitoring will contribute to not getting the equal quality of education. What about Indonesia? They have to change the way of learning from physical class to online class. The problem is the rural area contain deficient internet connectivity, so they have to join the physical class. Moreover, students will only able to join schools where they live, even though it's rural area. When it comes to Thailand, it's quite similar with Indonesia, but we should agree that problem of education inequality goes beyond basic education, which is more pressing for small primary schools and secondary schools. It reflects more than 173 higher education institutions. Only a handful of institutions continue to capture the imagination and aspiration of Thailand's top students. This leaves a huge gap in students' quality among different institutions. Next.
Thank you, Sabin. The next topic is how to provide quality education for everyone. Firstly, I would talk about a rights-based approach. Policymakers must incorporate a rights-based approach into policy formulation and implementation. Stakeholders must pay more attention to various students with diversity and manage their classroom better. Moreover, they also must encourage acceptance and awareness about human rights among families and society. Next, they must establish a curriculum that aims to prepare students to have the ability to live as individuals who are productive, creative, innovative, and can contribute to others. One of the methods is students are required to emphasize characteristics rather than intelligence in their class. Then, stakeholders must work together to create a caring relationship among them. There are several strategies to teach moral values to the students. For example, characteristic building program is the activities arranged to increase the students' emotional quotient. Caring school community is the activities arranged to create a caring relationship between teachers and students. And the last one is integral ethical education model that develop moral characteristics. Next, I would like to speak about rural development. The government should help by supporting developments in rural areas, like giving the educational budgets. For example, the television signal should be installed nationwide to support the educational programs broadcast on television. And the government must acknowledge the overcrowding issue, especially in the rural areas, and address the problem so that no one is left behind. Another solution is minimizing vernacular schools to encourage multiracial coexistence. This solution will decrease opportunities for children gathering in only one race because there is a possibility that some of them cannot speak a proper official language due to everything taught in their language. This way will let them practice respecting people and living peacefully in a multicultural society in the future. Next, please welcome Batishia.
of lifelong learning policies and programs as it increases small and medium-sized enterprises' involvement in lifelong learning. Secondly, enhance public awareness and involvement, such as launching a national promotional campaign to promote the image of lifelong learning. Next is to ensure continuity and appreciation towards lifelong learning. This is to increase mobility of learners. Fourth, provide funding mechanism as it is crucial in order to make sure no one is being left behind from financial burden for their education. Next would be Indonesia. In Indonesia, all learning should be recognized. This is because systems for transferring credit are improving, but gaps remain, especially in recognizing informal learning. Good system for informing and guiding learners, especially adults, remain elusive. Then acquire fundamental changes in the curriculum and pedagogy, particularly those with poor background education. This is to emphasize willingness to learn as much as content mastery. Then make underserved group as a priority, such as to children and adults. The fourth one is to evaluate and spread resources. This allows engagement of all parties such as government, school, family to be involved in these lifelong learning policies. Last but not least, Thailand. The first step is establishing national agenda and a major policy. This is to drive development of the country's non-formal and informal education. Second is to amend some rules and regulations related to management structure. This is to enhance the quality of national education and people living's quality. Making clear of the scope of lifelong education. This is appropriate to identify clear responsibilities regarding lifelong education for certain organizations. Now, let's move to the next part that will be presented by my teammate, which is Kayun.
Okay, thank you for Batrisha to explain the before me. Now, I want to explain about example of good practice on implementation of inclusive and lifelong learning in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. First is Indonesia. There is a policy from the government, namely the zoning system. The zoning system requires public school to accept students who live in the closest radius zone from the school. The zoning system provides education access for all people, since the government is obliged to ensure that the rights of all Indonesian children to receive education are implemented. The government is trying that there are no more favorite schools and non-favorite schools. These matters are handled on a zoning basis since zoning system accelerate the distribution of the quality of education in Indonesia. Next is scholarships. The provision of scholarships such as bidik misi and LPDP for outstanding but underprivileged students. With the scholarship, it can eliminate the existence of social strata because of education. There are no more children who do not go to school because of insufficient cost. However, all children can receive a proper education. Next is the 12-year compulsory education. As we know that education is a basic pillar in the progress of a nation and a country. So the 12-year compulsory education, this was done not without reason, but because of the increasing need for higher quality and competitive human resource. For this reason, the 12-year compulsory education program is proclaimed as a solution to reduce unemployment, reduce dropout rates, and increase the ability of young people to be more ready to compete globally. Next, there is Thailand. Children's Village School, Mu Bandek, is a project under the Foundation for Children, a registered non-profit Thai organization. Children here are provided with free education and accommodation. The costs are entirely covered by donations. However, the school seeks other ways of monetary support by selling the vegetables grown from the farm or artwork from the batik, weaving, and woodwork workshops to visitors. Registered with the Thai Ministry of Education, this school provides education from kindergarten to grade 6. The students here are mostly orphans and children from poor or deprived families, ranging in age from 3 to 12 to 20 years.
After graduation, Mubandek students go on to do various types of work, such as in advertising or furniture companies. Some of them even start their own business. So this school gives them the same opportunity to pursue education as other children. Last but not least is Malaysia. In Malaysia, with the scouting activities can train us to be independent. In life, being independent is very useful for survival. And also karate is useful for self-defense, which is in this life, sometimes there are many dangers that comes to us. So by learning the martial arts, we can face those dangers.
Thank you, Mokhairil. Possible causes of limitation factors in accessible and inclusive education. Limitation factors, inclusive education in Indonesia. There are still rare schools that are willing to accept students with good obstacle, physical, intelligence, emotional, and social. Some schools that have met the requirement to become inclusive school still subjective and emphasizing some aspect of view without redenstor. Is very shortage of teacher with a really special education background with educational service for children with special need. Lack of public awareness. With the nation, the children with special need can be contagious. Government bureaucracy. There are no sanctions or reward if the school their success achieve the expected target. Low budget education. Central management of education budget result in the use of research is very investment. Community participation is still low. In fact, historically, community participation in the development of education in the country is very large. Next, limitation factors inclusive in Malaysia. Research is also among the main challenges faced in current special need education sector in Malaysia. Research issues such as financial constraint, lack of interpreter service, lack of teacher who have skill in second language, and contradictory teaching practice for students with hearing impairment. Next, in Thailand, policy. The policy really ensure children with disabilities to able to access learning opportunities in school and be accepted as member of school communities nodes. Physical, the infrastructure, the environment in school, and the transportation in the Thailand are not designed to be suitable for the children with special need as they should be. Attitude. Most days, their children are to feel pity for people who are in difficulty situation. Most these thus they naturally will help those students, but they might not realize that their section may make them have low esteem. Miscommunication of stakeholder. They don't understand the principle of inclusive education well, and they think of children with special needs as problematic children and affect the school image. Knowledge. Lack of knowledge about supporting exclusive education in Thai. Next. Limitation factor accessible education in Indonesia. The gender of the child, an increase in the female population need to the balance with providing opportunities for women to develop and participate in the development of the country. Regional area, urban and rural. The existence of difference in service between regions can lead a gap in community participation in education. Parental education level. The higher a person's educational level, the more knowledge they have. Distance to school. The farther the distance from student to school, the greater the dropout or of student. Next, the age of marriage of the parent. Parents will marry a productive age, make them more productive at work, so they can earn more money so that they have time to send their children to university level. Foreign income. The increase of household income also increase the opportunity for children attend school. Number of children, the more family members, the lower the probability of the child going to school. Next, in Malaysia, status of education of children with disabilities, policy framework for education for children with disabilities, focus effort to improve for children with disabilities, and factor influencing the accessibility of educational facilities. Next, in Thailand, budget is not the amount of money we are lacking, is how money is not efficiently and effectively spent. And instructional media, this is the main problem, especially is in rural area and small school. It's found the supportive factor in learning management are still sort of internet access. The internet signal in Thailand hasn't covered all the country. There's not everyone your internet access in their home. Next, and the lack of teachers. Many small schools in rural areas lack teachers to increase the quality of teaching and the performance of students.
Thank you, Dimas. And now our presentation comes to the last part, which is the conclusion. This topic will be presented by me, Napum Kunset from Thaksin University. As you have listened to the information that members in my group has mentioned earlier, it is my duty to conclude the overall information into these two sentences. That's it: decrease inequality and limitation factors in education, and increase equality and promote lifelong learning. Further, we can sum up that good educational equality is the basic right, especially in the 21st century, that everybody in every area, urban area or rural areas, should gain education equally, not particular group. And no one should be left behind. Although you are disability or normal people, you have your own rights to get accessible to education easily. According to Sustainable Development Goal number 4, or the so-called SDG number 4, the aim of SDG number 4 is to ensure inclusive and equitable equality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Therefore, if we want to decrease the inequality and limitation factors in education, for example, budget or instructional media and so on, or if we want to ensure the equality of education in terms of inclusive and equitable in our society, the government or the relevant organizations must help or resolve these problems together. Additionally, not only do the government and the relevant organization resolve this problem, but we and other people in the society can also get rid of these challenges as well. The more we decrease the inequality and limitation factors in education, the more equality in inclusive and lifelong learning we have. Also, we hope that one day our society will achieve in the Sustainable Development Goal number 4. Finally, hopefully this presentation will be useful to you all, and thank you very much. But before that, next slide, please. And before we end this presentation, we would like to thank you to our mentor, Haikal Razi, our professors who recommend us to join this program, our universities for organizing this project. ขอบคุณครับ Terima kasih, terima kasih. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's good presentation from Team C. I noted that Team C talking about how zoning system cover everyone in Indonesia, and then the activity of Moon Bandek in Thailand that reaching every villagers, even the use of karate as well to implement the inclusivity in education. What I'm interested is as well that Team C also meant Team A, sorry, is it Team A or Team C?
Team A.
Team A, sorry, Team A. Okay, sorry. Team A also mentioned about the SDG theme, how the SDG theme can be an umbrella for every activity related to education, particularly for inclusive education. So again, well done for Team C and Team A. Thank you very much. Now we will have, so previously we have 10 minutes. Now we will have 5 minutes. I guess we will have more discussion in this case because we also have a question now. After you answer the question, then we will hear a comment and suggestion or sharing experience from Dr. Kismullah Yusuf as well. So we will get back at 1 or at 12. So in 5 minutes, are you okay? Yeah. Okay. Okay. See you everyone in 5 minutes. All right. We will get back. I would like to say hello to everyone. Hi. So in this session, we will first have a question answered by all the team. All right, first, and then after that, we will have a comment and experience sharing from Dr. Kismullah Yusuf. Now, I would like to share you the question that we already have. So we got the first question from Taksin University, from Dia. The question particularly was asked to Team A and Team B, but later on Team C and Team D can also answer the question. So could Team A and B share a bit of unemployment in your country? So I guess employment status or employment situation in your country. I think even we have inclusive education, we are still facing unemployment. What could be the solution that you can offer? So Team A or Team B can start answering the question. Team A or Team B first, maybe?
Okay, I will answer first.
Okay.
For my perspective is in like Thailand, even we have inclusive education, we are still facing unemployment because all university here, like they are produce graduates too many for a few. I think they should not create more graduates rather than the need from the workforce market. I think they should research or study first about the needs of the workforce market before accept the freshmen into their university. Yes, this is my answer. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, freshman market. So market. Okay, it's the important thing that highlight Team A. Team B, if you can add the answer, or you have other perspective about this.
The answer is the question is asking about a bit of unemployment that happening in my country. So the answer is Thailand actually unemployment is high while the visa operators are short of stuff. So this reflects the inequality for people to access to a good education that we meet with our job market expectation. This is why we need to like equalize and make sure it's accessible, like good education. So the solution that I will providing this kind of problem is that to defining good education, it is a supportive innovation environment since we move toward like a high technology working market. So we're supposed to work with a high that readily of technology. So therefore the student should be trained for the future skill, like a soft skill is very important. So we must like shape the generation to be more creative and innovative and comforting with soft skill where the technology is actually cannot like replace us, because right now, you know, like the jobs actually when we use technology instead of humans, kind of like unemployment of the person are actually like a lot. So if you train a human to actually, you know, the kind of like soft skill to developing like skilled, innovative, kind of like creative upskill, we kind of like fix this problem, and we can get this done by more like collaboration such as sharing technology and human resources, something like that.
Yeah, cool. So it's different perspective, I guess. Team A concerned about the upstream process, right? So it's since the recruitment process, the demand of the freshmen, while the team B assessing the how we train, how should the training provided for every student? So the output, how we create the output to be better. Okay. Any other of team would like to add, or team A or team B? You are allowed. Yeah.
Or actually, team B has another solution.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Okay, come on.
I would like to add another perspective. So what happened in Malaysia? Actually, I'm from Malaysia, and we have a huge percentage of unemployment, and it is predicted to increase years by years. And I cause of this unemployment is because of higher retirement age. In Malaysia, for government officers, they have at maximum 60 years old for retirement age, and the government will give options to the officers whether they want to retire at 60 or 58 or 57. It is up to them, but if they retire less than 60, they would get the pension. Yes, the pension would be given by the government monthly, but they would get a much lower percentage of their monthly salary before. For example, if you choose to retire at 60, then you will get almost 50% of you will get the pension, almost 50% of your monthly salary when you're working. But if you choose to retire lower than 60, for example 58, you will get much lower percentage of pension. And it is even worse in the private sector. In my own experience, my uncle worked in private sectors, and he still couldn't retire even though almost 70 years old, because he couldn't afford to support the family even after the retirement. Yes, we have the social security organization that they basically deducted a small portion of the private sector's worker to provide social security protection to employees. And when the employee once they retire, they would get their money that has been deducted by the social security organization in a huge amount one time. It is not monthly. So, and you know, with the current situation, like you need a lot of money to survive days by days, and they couldn't choose to retire earlier even though they are already old, because they need to work to support the family. And this results in no vacancies in the companies and also in government position. And the graduates couldn't apply to the job because there are no vacancies, because all the positions are still filled with the senior workers. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good point. Any other from Team B, Team D, and Team C?
Oh yeah, sure. Team D would like to add more a little bit about the unemployment for each country.
Are you from Team B?
D.
B. Okay. Can we give a for? Oh, D. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. Go ahead. From D. Okay. Yeah.
So regarding the unemployment rate in each country would be different, obviously. But as for Indonesia, one of the reason why there's a high number of unemployment right now in Indonesia is because of the COVID-19 pandemic. We see that there are a lot of people being fired, being moved towards their job because business cannot supply their own laborers with the money that they are supposed to get. So one way for the government to actually face this unemployment situation is that in Indonesia there is something called the Kartu Prakerja. So it's actually a way for the people who seeks for job to get their knowledge regarding the what is it called again? The talents that they required, the adequate facilities that they need in order to get into their job later on, which they also be provided with some intensive with the government itself. So after that, the government hoped that they would be able to face the unemployment rate right after the pandemic ends. As for the other country representative, maybe Jeffrey.
Yeah, and as for Malaysia, currently Malaysia actually have the highest unemployment rate since the financial crisis on 1997/1998. Unemployment issue actually can never be solved completely because the labor supply will always be more than the demand. However, by having inclusive education and lifelong learning spirit, we can eventually reduce the unemployment in long run. There will always be the industry that have more demand and the industry that has less demand. Let's say, for example, in the past, fast food industry was highly demanded during the 90s. But in the recent years, other industries such as Korean food, delivery service, etc. is increasing rapidly and eventually replace the fast food industry. So for those people in 90s, if they had the knowledge required by the Korean food and delivery company, they could easily replace their job in the Korean food and delivery company compared to those who don't have those knowledge required. That's all from me. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm from Group D as well. For Thailand, according to National Security Policy and Plan, the government is now supporting young generation to further studying in vocational colleges, where the schools, I mean the institutes provide certain fields for students, so that when before students apply to vocational colleges, they have to know what they really like so that they can apply to that certain field. And also in vocational college, they have, like well-trained for work, as Thailand is now an industrial country. And according to the statistics, laborers with specific skills are still required, but like only few people further studying vocational colleges. Also, reduction of allowance from migrant workers is the process to give a chance for the population in Thailand to get the jobs. So that as the initial ones, that you have to captivate your children, your young generations, your youth to know to find, to explore what they really like, so that they can go to that way rightly, so that the unemployment rate will be decreased. Thank you.
Yeah. I haven't heard from Team C. Can anybody from Team C answer the question? Team C, are you with us? Hello, Team C. Okay, because there is also a question from Team C. Again, we're moving on to another question in the chat box. So there is a question from Wahyu Utami from University of Andalas. So she is asking for sorry, he or she, something like, okay, she, I guess. Okay, she is asking for team C. So I guess team C should answer this question. Suppose we are in the position who live in remote village with limited internet access and limited facilities. What can we do to fight the inequality, and how we improve our knowledge with just accept the limitation? This question is almost similar, like a question from Pimpakan. So in the case you have no internet connection, any example of lifelong learning like MLOC? So she's asking for solution if there is no connection. Anyone from Team C can answer?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead, listener.
If the situation is environment sentence is well needed for a situation like in Indonesia, a policy is made to make free Wi-Fi around village with adequate internet access, so that internet access is not obstacle.
Can you re-explain bit, because bit backing for us to hear your question, to hear your answer? Listener, are you with us? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, okay. Can you repeat your answer?
If the situation is like the government assistance are great with needed for a situation like this in Indonesia, a policy is made to make free Wi-Fi around village with adequate internet access, so that internet access is not a problem for the student.
Okay, so I got your point. So installing Wi-Fi in every village. Okay. There is, if I ask one team to answer this question, any other team from Team C or other member of Team C as well can answer the question. Can any one of you answer this question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, is it Afifa?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So for this question, in Malaysia, we have remote areas like some certain village or areas have internet that can be used for those areas. Like in their homes, they have the passwords. So in the areas can get used the internet. So once we get in that area, we can use the internet also if we get the password. That happens in Malaysia. So I think it's possible to have like remote area. So once we can improve the inequality education in like this lah.
Yeah. Hello.
That's all from me.
Okay. So it's more like infrastructure that we should build to support the education system to fight with the inequality. Okay, guys. So I got so many questions here, but unfortunately, because of the limitation in time, so we can't answer all of your questions. But everyone already show a very good response. Now we will moving on to Pak Kismullah again, to Dr. Kismullah again, to share his comment about the presentation from Team C and Team A, as well as the suggestion maybe about how you respond every question as well. And maybe there is another perspective from Dr. Kismullah. To Pak Kismullah, are you ready, Pak? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Go on, Pak.
Yeah. Okay. From group 3, the presentation is quite good because they have had research on approach, method, technique, and steps in teaching for the disabilities, for solving the problem of inequality of education among the member countries of IMT-GT. The group also provides solution for solving the problem, elaborate the limitation faced by the countries. And one of the example that I can give to all groups here is a diamond program, Diamond Foundation from Southern Thailand. It was established by a member of Parliament of Thailand for the benefit of Muslim in Southern Thailand in remote area. And they provide quite a lot of scholarship. And some of the students are studying at Shakwala University, paid by the parents, the community that are involved in the foundations. And similar happened in Southern Philippines. I went to both countries and be with them for quite some times. And both countries are now developing or establishing Bait al-Mal because they cannot establish Sharia banking in their area because they want Sharia banking, but they could not. So one of the solutions for that is to establish a Bait al-Mal. And I took both community leaders of the countries and brought them to Banda Aceh to study how we establish Bait al-Mal in Aceh. Because I was the one who wrote the proposal for Bait al-Mal in 1994, 1995. So I know a little bit about Bait al-Mal and how to develop rural community in remote area using the cooperative under Bait al-Mal. So it's a funding for rural community with one suggestion made by the community leaders. They must have their children in classroom. They will have assistant from the Bait al-Mal, but the children must be back to school. So that's a good way of educating children in remote areas. And one of the examples. In the last group, this is also interesting that there should be not regional policies or district policies, but there should be national policy on how to handle the inequality of education for disabled learners in every area in the country, because there were an exception given by the group, the second group this morning about Papua. I went to Papua, in remote area in Papua, and I saw Muhammadiyah is, I would say, the only one after the Christian missionaries in Papua that care for education for the people in remote area. They are not meant to focusing on Islamic community only, but for everyone in the area. If the government say because of lack of infrastructure, I would like to blame the government. It's not true. How can Muhammadiyah can do it? And Muhammadiyah is not a government organization. How can the mission of the other religious group be in there? They can educate the rural community and be the governor of Papua. So why they could do it? Well, the government could not do it. So who's to blame here? So there should be from the inner heart of the policymakers. So I agree with the last one. There should be a policy, there should be willingness from our government to educate the children in rural areas. I saw Muhammadiyah establish Polytechnic Desa, is rural community health center. Poltekkes, not Puskesmas, the smaller unit, they did it. And they established a school for everyone, not exclusively for certain community, for everyone. I am, and my father are members of Nahdlatul Ulama. They are NATO, no action but talk only.
Communication problem. Or maybe Pakis, are you with us?
The group also said there should be an overall reform in education, a reopen program, and assign certain, if the government could not do it, assign certain organization to do it. That's the group B, and the last group proposal. And sadly, they said there are teachers who ignored this minority group of learners because they could not understand. I would say with a bad word, they chase them away. They ignore it. And other problem that they found is early marriage, purposely, unpurposely. And this give impact to children education. And the last one they mentioned about gender, the care of gender. I established one junior high school in remote area in PT district because almost all of junior high school age do not continue their education because they live in remote area. So I built one small SMP, one small junior high school in that remote area. Hopefully it can be opened by this year or early next year. And I also opened one kindergarten for free for the community in the area. I also provide a community farm for the ex-GAM combatant in that area. What do you call that? The members who are very, very slow or lazy, the laziest GAM member can earn 1,500 a month. But the imam of that masjid who work hard can get 9 million a month. So there should be a willingness of the members of disadvantage and the government to start and show the sample. And my solution after listening to Group A, Dia, Solia, Nurul, and Team D, Afif, Tan, and Nilai, and Team C, Wahyu, Lisna, and Nur Afifa, I can conclude that we can improve the quality of education in rural area. Money is one of the problems, but money can be generated if there are collaboration from the bank, from the sponsors, from government organization with the skill. Train, not everyone can be a sarjana, can be engineer. Look at Singapore. They don't require everyone to be engineer. When they are at high school, the teachers and the counselor will inform the parent and the students. If you continue for university level, you might have problem in in math and science, in anything. But we suggest that you enter community college to improve your skills, life skills that prospect your future. But not in here. Everyone goes to university, spend their parents' money, you know, they make their parents poor because of the education. When they leave the university, they have no skill. So having a skillful community is important. And we can do through student mobility by imitating the program conducted in other country and bring back here. In Germany, the bank does not have their own training and development center. They use university. They recruit their candidate, send to university, train them based on the curricula provided by the bank. When they graduate, they go back to the bank. So the government does not have to provide huge amount of money for the lab, but the bank will do. And we don't do it here. No synchronization between university and labor market. No labor market. Oh, the time is up. But I want to to add one more thing. I have seen such a program in Germany. I have seen such a program in Singapore. When I studied in Singapore, I have seen such a program in Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. There is a very good collaboration between the funding agency and the training. So what I did in my life is that to train the Aceh makers. But then I combine my training with the bank. Once they have been trained, the taste is good. Their noodle, their noodle is good. And then the bank will finance it. So it is a guarantee of money spent for every individual and a guarantee of marketing. For you to remind, there was Haji Umar. Haji Umar is me makers of Simpang Lima Banda Aceh, the best me makers. I trained the student with him, but one promise. No, do not allow that students to open their noodle store in Banda Aceh. He said, one of them may be making noodle better than me. Then I'll go bankrupt. So that promise was kept by my learners. So once they have been trained, introduce them to the bank Rakyat at that time, Bank BNI, and then they are stationed in Blang PD, in Lok Sukun, in other parts, and they prosper. I trained the sandal repairer, tukang jahit sepatu sandal, and I did the same. With small amount of money, they can prosper. Making sandal, the tool for making sandal, it's about 5 million rupiah. Only 5 million rupiah. And some of them know in Malaysia, mending, repairing shoes and sandals. And they earn 2,000 ringgit a month and send the money to their parents. And they don't have a shop. They open their shoe repairer at Kaki Lima in Malaysia. But the government are trying to spend the money and unwilling to wait. Actually train them first, provide the money, and let them be with the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Pak Kismullah Yusuf for your experience. I highlighted that it's actually everyone that should involve in this, and even with small opportunity, we can create a difference. We can make a change with even single opportunity. So don't give up. You are an agent. So every one of you in everyone's attending these sessions today has a different background, has different education sector, so different field that they master. So you have your unique way, your creative way to maximize how inclusivity in education can be applied. Okay, thank you very much once again to Pak Kismullah Yusuf for sharing us.
One more final, can I?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, just short one.
Yes, I
Okay.
am a tailor since I was 11 years old.
Okay.
And then I practiced that job until today.
Mm.
Yesterday I finished four clothes for my wife, my children, and my grandchildren.
Okay.
I have been training more than 300 tailors since I was young, during my spare times. And they are now working in many bazaar in Aceh and overseas. And I also did that when I was in the US. I trained my colleague there. And one of my product was a wedding gown. And I won a state competition for that baju pengantin.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, even some things that is out of your mind, something you are passionate with, something you love with, can even create an opportunity for us to make a change. That's very good information, sir. I do love the way how you make a change. I think we should learn from peoples like Pak Kismullah and from other peoples. They are very inspiring to us to learn and to make this change and to implement this in inclusivity in education. All right,
one more thing.
I guess the time is limited, sir. I'm so sorry for. Okay. 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 I guess for next meeting we can talk more again. Yeah. Okay. Now we will have we're already in the closing session, so we'll have a concluding remark from the host university, from Universitas Syah Kuala. In this case, will be delivered by the Coordinator for Promotion and International Mobility, Dr. Mailizar. To Dr. Maizal, whenever you are ready, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Izan. Can you hear me?
Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Honorable guests, keynote speaker, our speaker, participant, and audience of this event. First of all, on behalf of International Office of Syah Kuala University, I would like to thank all parties who been involved in these programs. To International Office team of Syah Kuala University, Andalas University, UNINET, Taksin University, and Peng Songkla University. And I would like to express thanks to Dr. Kismullah, our keynote speaker, with a very outstanding and rich experience. He really present a lot of information or a lot of insight to this event. And thanks to moderator Mr. Izan, to our speakers, very outstanding speaker, audience, and also mentor who play a very important role to prepare our speaker. IMT-GT Can Talk project is, I can say, is really a wonderful platform for the student to share their idea and work collaboratively. So we start this program last year. So last year we had 3 universities involved, and last year we addressing issue COVID-related issue, and then this year we try to improve these programs, and we call it Can Talk Plus. And we got more university involved for this year. So we got 6 universities. And also this year, the program become very more interesting because we have like mixed groups. It's quite different to last year. So in this year, we address very important issue in terms of SDGs for the 6 series of our programs. So for the first series today, we will address this very important issue related to quality of education and also lifelong learning. So when we design this program, Teen Talk Plus, we have a bit concern actually. So because we think it's going to be a bit difficult to have a mixed group for presentation. So luckily it was wrong actually. So what we learned today, so students very well prepared in a mixed group, and the vibe in the group is very positive, and I can say it's a proof that students can do anything as long as they are provide a platform. So I'm really happy to see how students work collaboratively in a mixed group. And I really enjoy, so for the today talk from our keynote speaker and also from the group. So our keynote speaker highlight a very important issue in terms of student disabled learners. So I get very interesting quote from the speaker that the student, they don't choose to be enabled. So that's not their choice. So there are a lot of issues in terms of disabled students based on the presentation. So one of them is teacher not well prepared. On the other hand, student not able to express that they have special way of learning or they have special need of learning. Therefore, based on the keynote speaker, the student and teacher like walk in the dark rooms. So I hope this forum will be alive. Will be alive in this dark rooms, I hope. And also another interesting thing that we give the same topic to all the group. But when we see the presentation today, even though it's the same topic, but the group or the student came very, with very different idea, very different perspective, very different example of the good program they already implemented in Malaysia, Indonesia, and also Thailand. I think this is very, very important to see how students got very different point of view when they discuss about the topics. And I think the most important point that we need to think of, suggested by Pak Kees, that we need real implementation in the field. So we need real implementation in the field, and we believe that we can improve quality of education. So finally, I would like to congratulate to all teams who done very good job and do very best presentation, and look forward to upcoming series. And thank you very much. See you all next time, and thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much to Dr. Malizar for the concluding remark. I would like to remind you that for all participants to not forget to fill up the feedback form that's already posted in the chat box. So if you are aiming for the certificate of this session, so please kindly fill up those forms. And now we will have a voting. We will have a voting. So we will launch the voting so everyone can vote. Which team should be the best team for today's session? So can everyone see the vote? Okay. Can everyone see the quick poll vote? Yeah, so just click which team you are thinking that they are the best group for today. For everyone. Okay, here you goes. Okay, so we found the winner for the best of the presentation for today's event coming from Team D. Congratulations for Team D. But the percentage is not really much. So for Team A, Team B, and Team C also have a tight percentage in terms of the vote. So it means that everyone's also the winner. So every group also the winner. Team D maybe a little bit more communicative, yeah, in sharing their idea. I guess that's the main point. That might be a bit difference in two other teams. Okay, congratulations to Team D. For the winners of the best presentation will be awarded with a certificate. So you will be provided with a certificate by the committee later on. Once again, please not forget to share your feedback. That is already posted in the chat box. Okay, I guess that's all for all the agenda. We're a little bit over from the schedule, like maybe 20 minutes from the schedule, but we gain a lot of experience in this session. Yeah, we learned very much, particularly from the keynote speaker, from other presenters as well. And I would like to congratulate for every team that presenting in today's session. I would like to say thank you very much as well, and my honorable as well to the keynote speaker, Dr. Kismullah, who shared his expertise and then experience, so many experience that we can learn from him. And I would like to congratulate and thank as well the other committee that is working behind. So they may not be seen in this session, but they are actually working behind us. And as a moderator, I would like to apologize for every inconvenience during this session. If I made a mistake, I do seek your apologize for this. And hopefully we can see each other again in the next series, in the virtual Teen Talk Series 2 of Project Plus. And I would like to remind you all, everyone here, that please stay healthy, as the pandemic might be increased a little bit more again, because the situation a bit intense as well at the moment. So just stay healthy, and then keep praying that we can meet each other again face to face in the future. So I'll end up today's session by saying Alhamdulillah, and thank you for everyone. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.